In this quick video, I thought I'd just debunk capitalism.
Yeah, that's gone so well for everyone else who's tried it.
It's not exactly very difficult because really the fruitage of that social model is what we're experiencing right now.
You mean longer, healthier, happier lives? You mean unprecedented improvements in the lifestyles of the poor and working class? You mean starvation being conquered for the first time in human history? You mean unprecedented economic, social, and technological innovation? You mean cooperation among the peoples of the world like no one has ever seen before? You mean the global poverty rate being cut in half every 20 years? I mean, all that stuff sounds great to me, but if you want to try and debunk it, go right ahead. I could use the views.
Which is ultimately abject insanity, abject poverty, and of course grave inequality.
Oh, I see, you're a lunatic! Why didn't you say so? Could have saved everyone a lot of trouble there.
It's not that the inequality is in of itself the issue, it's the poverty, right? As long as we eradicate poverty, we will simultaneously ameliorate inequality.
This is actually statistical nonsense. The only purpose of inequality is to feed people's envy. Hey, those people have stuff that you don't, so let's destroy the economy to make me more powerful. That's always how it goes. Whereas what we should be looking at is the actual improvement in people's lives. And as I've shown repeatedly, the poor in capitalist countries have it better than the average person in less capitalist countries. The poor in America have more living space per person than the average non-poor person in Sweden, France, or Germany. As of 2018, 96% of poor parents report that their children were never hungry at any point in the prior year. 80% of poor households have air conditioning, compared to 36% among the entire population in 1970. 92% of poor households have a microwave. 3/4 have a car or truck. 43% have internet access. 1/3 have a widescreen TV. And the average consumption of vitamins, protein, and minerals is virtually the same for poor as for middle-class children and is well above the worldwide norm. Only 4% became temporarily homeless, less than 10% lived in trailers, half lived in single-family homes, and 42% actually own their own homes. And the vast majority of those homes are in good repair. Sorry, Adam, but you're not going to be able to do this by lying about the statistics.
Social inequality and economic disparity are congenital diseases of capitalism. And of course that's going to be the case, right?
Actually, as I've shown in the past, you get less inequality the more economically free a country is. What did I just warn you about the statistics?
Because if money exists, then so does meritocracy. So what is meritable and why?
In a capitalist country, it's how much you can improve the lives of others by their own subjective evaluation. If they agree you're improving their lives, they'll be willing to give you money in return for it. In a socialist country, it's how useful you are to politicians. And even then, you're not that much better off. They just use you as political fodder to improve their own lives. It's happened that way every single time socialism has ever been tried.
At some point down the line, someone becomes an architect, right? Their children perhaps, well, I am an architect, and I can tell you that it's not actually paid as well as you think it is.
The average salary for an architect is $105,000 a year. Keep that in mind.
But let's say that you become a banker or something, and their child is therefore born into privilege. They can get into the property ladder, they can start buying land.
Exactly what do you think it is that bankers do? They take money from depositors with the promise of keeping it secure. They keep some of that money in reserve, and they loan the rest out. They need to be able to manage those loans so that by the time they cover depositors and withdrawals and expenses and everything else, they have a little left over for themselves. In order to do that, they need to be able to make good decisions about who they're going to loan to, which is people who are going to be able to pay it back with interest. In other words, people who are going to use that money to be productive in the future. Directly or indirectly, that means people creating jobs and improving the lives of others, and improving the entire economy in the process. If the banker doesn't do that, he loses money and goes out of business.
And it just gets, they accumulate more and more wealth, whereas those who are doing lines of work that aren't exactly, conducive to financial fortune, they stay down there, and everyone else gets further up, and there's get this huge chasm, right?
So once again, I'm going to link to the book, The Millionaire Next Door. Read it, and you'll see what a moron people like Adam are. When the authors started studying this, much to their surprise, they found a greater concentration of millionaires in middle-class neighborhoods than they did in affluent areas. And they found out that it has nothing to do with being born into privilege. That's how it was before capitalism. Capitalism, for the first time in history, allowed people who weren't born in privilege to become richer. Over 90% of America's millionaires are self-made. They're first-generation rich. That's also true of 2/3 of America's billionaires. And most of the people you're looking at in envy are not rich. They're just wasting their money trying to look rich. As the saying goes, all hat, no cattle. As the book's authors put it, you're looking at UAWs, or under-accumulators of wealth. What you should be looking at is PAWs, or prodigious accumulators of wealth. The thing is, they look like most other people. They don't drive fancy cars, wear fancy clothes, live in fancy houses, or anything like that. That's not how you become rich, and it's not how you stay rich. UAWs make a lot of purchases based on showing off their status. PAWs are content with a reliable car like a Honda Accord instead of a Lexus. They don't wear expensive designer clothing. They have a house that meets their needs instead of one with 20 rooms and an Olympic-sized pool. They're able to enjoy wealth and comfort because they live a frugal and practical lifestyle, not one that requires a ton of money to maintain. Earlier in your video, you say you're an architect, but you're not making that much money, which really leads me to wonder what kind of lifestyle you're living. I mean, clearly you're saving a lot of money on hair care products, but what sort of lifestyle are you living that you can't live comfortably on an architect's salary? Read the book. One of their case studies is a mobile home dealer with a net worth of $1.1 million, and they compare him to an attorney whose net worth was less than $250K because he was trying to afford an affluent lifestyle.
Between what we call the affluent, the rich, and the poor.
Yeah, well, when you look at that person and say, oh, he must be poor, you may very well be looking at a millionaire. And he'd be a millionaire precisely because he's not living an affluent lifestyle.
But what do we do about it? Well, what we do is ultimately we start to come together. This is what the message has always been, right? We have to come together. We have to be the ones that we've been waiting for. Right? We have to be the change.
He goes on like this for a while. I'm skipping.
No one's getting to the root causal issue, which is that money is ultimately a tool of enslavement.
Which is absolutely insane. Enslavement is what we had before there was any formal system of money. Slavery goes back to ancient Sumeria, being systematized in the Code of Ur-Nammu over 4,000 years ago. And it's probably a lot older than that, dating back to the first city-states. Whereas money as we understand it today didn't exist until Song Dynasty China. That was the first time when you had banknotes developed from merchant receipts. It hasn't really been around as long as you think. If anything, money is what allowed us to be able to eliminate slavery. The ability to work for money allowed workers to compete against slaves as hired hands, requiring no initial outlay and delivering superior results. Funny how that happens when people actually want to work instead of being forced into it. And that allowed less affluent farmers, merchants, and households to be able to gain the advantage of their services. That's why mercantilist laws had to be continually passed for centuries to stifle competition among workers and competing firms, and why laws had to be passed specifically propping up slavery and defraying its costs, like the Fugitive Slave Acts.
Once we have this foundation of shelter, energy, food, and water as basic human rights, then poverty cannot exist.
The reason why these things cost money is that they're hard to produce. If you take that away, how are they going to be produced at all? You can say they're rights all you want, but that doesn't actually put food on the table.
Our servitude is strictly objective, right? If I give you broccoli or peas for dinner, it's not much of an option, but you could say, well, it's an option, it's your choice. Similarly, it doesn't matter which plantation we go to, which office, we have to go somewhere. And this is actually the root causal issue for a lot of our suffering.
If anyone can make sense of that, please let me know in the comments. I played it several times and I can't make heads or tails of what he's trying to say.
We're having to work all the time and we're not really experiencing true liberation, true freedom.
He never really gets around to saying what he thinks true freedom is. Probably because he doesn't understand it himself. Capitalism, as I've repeatedly shown, is nothing more than the voluntary interactions among the population. Any change from that involves force. It involves an inhibition of freedom. Our founders fought a war to get rid of that, so that people would have the right to form their own businesses, make their own money, and accumulate their own wealth. It's the only system that's ever been shown to improve the lot of the poor. And that's it. That's really all he says. We're only 3 minutes into the video, but the last 2 minutes are his closing. If that's in any way indicative of his approach to time management, no wonder he can't hack a basic lifestyle being an architect. So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.